So just I rang that George up this morning. He's one of the clerks at the Journal office for public petitions. In fact, when he answered the phone one time, I've only spoke to him twice, I think, and the first time it was like public petitions like that, as if it's a big thing. But these are the figures for how many they get per sessions of Parliament, which is not huge numbers. He did actually point me to the sessional returns so I can get these figures now. It was better on my other phone because it managed to fit everything in one screen without having to scroll up and down, but the microphone's pretty much worn out on the other phone. Right, they've got some questions for George because I need to know some things, right? Firstly, so the sessional returns, we've got up to 2023 to 24, so we want 2024 to 2025 and 2025 to 26. We want to see the new ones, which they don't have there. Now, they've got them back to 1997-98, but when you open that page, D, which is for public petitions, is not available, so we can't see 97 to 98. I'm not too concerned about that, though, because these figures now fit with the previous figures that I've already got printed in the older petitions committee reports, you know, for like through the 1990s and the early 90s, going, you know, right back to the early 1900s, and then the 1800s, where we've got tens of thousands. To be honest, these look, so I'll just explain a few things here, right? Maybe this isn't the best order to explain it. I'll explain briefly, right? I've used the letter E in front of a number in brackets. That's the number of E petitions, right? So that is the number of E petitions per session. Well, per sessional period they've got written, right? That's why they're high figures at the bottom in thousands since the e-petition service took off, but they're still, with this very, very convenient online service, which is very easy to use and easy to share, they're still not up in the figures of the 1800s, like, you know, 10, 20,000 per of these sessions. But we know that those type of figures are getting submitted, but they won't allow us to run them, right? And they're not showing up on these figures, and they don't even, many of them don't even show up on the rejected list, right? Now, I've not got the figures for how many were debated or how many got a reply or how many got observations from ministers or anything like that, right? I've just got it down in simple numbers for now between paper petitions and e-petitions, right? Now, there's some things that need to be said and understood and recognised, right? Other than we don't have the 97 to 98 numbers. So firstly, obviously, all down the left-hand side are the dates of the sessions, right, between Parliament sessions. Now, the right-hand column going down has two numbers. It has a number and then a number in brackets. Now, there was a number for the complete total petitions altogether, and then there was a number for ones that were under the particular main standing order, right? Now, what I've done is I've separated the numbers. I broke them up from the total. So, like, for example, here, we've got 56, right? So that number there, 56. So the full total was 56 and 43 together, but it only had 56 for the ones that were under that particular standing order, right? Which is the main, I think it's the main standing order. Now, the thing is that, so what are the other 43 signatures for? Well, that's what I need to ask George. What are the additional numbers which make the figure up to total number of petitions, right? Now, my question is this to George. George, are the total number of petitions inclusive of petitions which are like for a grievance, right? Petitions for personal grievances, because they don't fall under the other standing order, right? Or possibly even grievance of privilege or any personal grievance, right, which is not falling under, you know, matters for particular legislation or other motions or whatever. if that's the case, and I don't know whether it is or not, because I haven't been able to get the answer yet, because this is a question that I'm putting. This is my question, right? If you take away the figure which isn't in brackets, which leaves the figure in the brackets, the normal figure in the brackets down the right hand side, those are the numbers which there doesn't seem anything listed for them. So are they the peculiar and miscellaneous petitions like personal grievances, complaints, etc.? And we don't even have the figures for Daniel Greenberg on here, do we? How are they treating, when you complain to the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards, is that considered a petition to Parliament anymore, or a grievance? They was talking about whether it's privileged or not, or are they completely separate? So I don't think it properly shows the true figures for the whole country and what people are doing, and the Ombudsman takes on a lot of complaints. So this is my guess, right? And obviously I might be wrong about this. These figures, 43, 27, 22, 26, 16, 7, 36, 19, 26, 12, and then in 2009 to 10, 258, 28, 14, 38, 62, 22, 32, 108, right? And then 3, right? Are they just like personal grievances or miscellaneous petitions? Now, this is the ironic thing, right? We're getting those, the total number of petitions, which is minus the normal standing order ones, continue all the way until 2019. Here, there, right? Now that's the last time they do it like that. They stop putting the total and then then also just the number of standard petitions, right? They stopped doing it. Now 2019 is when I did my speed camera investigation petition, which did get published, and I only got 20 signatures, right? Which is important. And that Parliament ended early. There was a general election called early, and it ended. And this is why there are only 189 e-petitions compared to these other periods where we've got like 5,574, 2,892, 3,461, 1,571, right? So those e-petitions, in fact, there's also there's also 7,996, right? So this is the question, right? Something happened in that 2019 session when I did my speed camera petition, right? Because I started the investigation in 2013, but I didn't get around to doing the proper e-petition because I was doing the actual investigation itself. I think I might have submitted some other ones earlier, but I might have even done paper petitions. But I was still doing an investigation for that purpose, right? Towards that, in order to, right? So there were only 17 petitions in 2019. So mine's got to be one of the 189 e-petitions, right? It's definitely one of those 189 e-petitions. Why did they stop doing the miscellaneous grievance petitions in brackets? What are separate from the other ones in that date? There's something curious going on there. Let's go back up here, right? So, these are the people in the whole country, right, who know about petitioning, that it exists, paper petitions, and like to write a petition out to the Honourable Commons assembled in Parliament. Obviously, they must have researched it, right, or whatever, written it out. It's quite low. 56. Only 56, right? And then 43 that we don't know what they're about. For now, we'll say that they might be personal grievances. 67 paper petitions, 1999 to 2000, 2000 to 2001, 28, 2001 to 2002, 109, 2002 to 2003, 194, Then we get 112, 44, that's quite low. 257, 142, 195, 111, 135, 159, 132. So we're looking at, it goes from around, 40, 50 at the minimum per session to something like around 250-ish, right? It rarely reaches, well, sometimes it gets to 100. So what I'd say is it's somewhere bouncing around greater or less than 100. Sometimes it's less than 100, sometimes it's over 100, right? So that's not many people out of 60, 70 million people in England, is it? At all. And the ironic thing, or the strange thing, is that if you look at the figures for the 1990s, right, all the way from at least just before World War One, all the way through World War Two, and all through the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and to joining on to this, it's around the same. I think that's it's significant that the numbers are sort of are generally, right, around the sort of same frequencies up and down, around the same numbers. There are only around, something like, 50 to 150 or so, 250, 50 to 250. It's not many people who know about and make use of petitioning, including students who study it, right? Because students obviously study it in history, which means that there's not many people making proper use out of it at all for the paper version when it's a proper judicial process to Parliament. It's meant to be. Now, in the manual of procedure, I've also had to learn about private bills, although I've got no idea how I couldn't at this moment prepare and submit a private bill. I've had a look into it a little bit, and I think I could probably learn it, but this is what the parliamentary agents are meant to do, right? But there are only about 7 of them left. Now, I thought there'd be quite a lot of water, gas companies doing them and local councils, but I've just looked, now I found these sessional returns, I've looked at the number of private bills and the hours spent on it. I haven't looked at every session like this and got every number. I looked at a few, and it's like one, right? One private bill, okay? So no wonder there are only like, 6 or 7 parliamentary agents who have learned it and who offer the service. Local councils don't even seem to be doing it, or companies, right? They seem to be leaving the government to the law and the national highways and the rail companies, and letting the local councils do their local orders. So people aren't using it, and the private bills is one of the other processes where you are privileged, and you can use privileges, and people can violate your privileges, being violation or contempt of your proceedings, because you've got to put adverts in the newspapers. You can get signatures to promote it, and then people can oppose it, right? And this is when if people break privileges, they're in contempt, right? But also you can use that Parliamentary Papers Act. Now, people aren't using private bills, and it's astounding, because that's how you stop people from doing these 15-minute cities. It's how you stop people, these local councils who oppose the councils, from doing 15-minute cities. You can do all kinds of things with private bills, protect land, but also public bills as well. But this is the thing, not that many people are even doing these public bills, very few. And how many of these actually do MPs take up and put into law or make a law? Now, the time spent on private bills was about an hour. So if whoever did a private bill that session, and whoever put it through, to get something made into law, enacted for them, even like a locally private bill or whatever, which is still law into effect, there's only about an hour spent on it in Parliament, right? So that's absolutely astounding, because it means that it doesn't even take that much time of Parliament work to get it through. Now, in contrast, private members' bills, these are the ones that MPs are allowed to introduce legislation themselves. They're called private members' bills, but I think it's still in the public business. It's quite misleading. they're meant to be representing their constituents, laws that the constituents want, or laws that the people who follow the political parties want, not just on the manifesto, right? Possibly things that people have asked for in these petitions, but the MPs draw a ballot out to see what order it gets put in. And there was I think there was 60 hours spent on private members' bills, right? 60 hours. So it all seems about, the MPs putting bills and private members' bills, and very little now on the private bills and public petition matters, which I don't think get taken really seriously, even when you do a judicial matter, a grievance of judicial thing, which is quite important and serious to Parliament, right? So that's interesting. Now, remember, I've got some dates highlighted here. I'm going to highlight this date here. Oops, I've just messed up there. I want to try and get this highlighted here. And if I can, that's it, right. 2006, this is a very important date because this is when Tony Blair starts the number 10 Downing Street website. Now, does the number 10 Downing Street website affect the normal number of petitions? It doesn't seem to have much impact on paper petitions, or whether they're grievances at the right-hand side, or whether they're just normal paper petitions. It got introduced, and now I don't have the figures for the number 10 Downing Street website. I don't think I found them yet. I really need those figures, right? Now, from there until 2010, this is when that little highlighted area there now, this is while the number 10 Downing Street website is functioning. Now, what they do is they said that they sent off petitions to different governmental departments, which the 1944 report says you're not meant to do that, right? They didn't deal with them through the main chamber in Parliament as proper judicial claims. It was like, you're doing it to number 10 Downing Street, and they had a team there online, and they sent them off to the government departments, when you might be opposing or challenging those government departments, like DVLA or, highways. You might be in opposition to them, to what executives want, or to what the minister wants, or whatever, right? So you definitely didn't get your MP voting on it, or people in the chamber, right? I'm concerned how they ran the number 10 website. But look at this. There's a figure here. Now, that figure is 258. Now, that is quite a standout figure on this page, and I can't get it to highlight it properly, and I want to get rid of this keyboard, but there we go. Right now, that's a outstanding number on here, 258, and why is that? I don't know, because we can't see the petitions. If we could have all the petitions out on the table, but it's the number in the bracket. It's not the petitions that are for the normal standing order, normal legislation, or normal motions for things to be done by Parliament in the normal, business, right? Public business. The high number is in the total number of petitions. So if they are the miscellaneous ones, then there is a hell of a lot more of them for that session. Now, why is that? This is my theory on it, and this is purely my theory, right? And this is a guesswork, right? So I could be wrong about this, but I'm going to propose this is a proposal, right? Were people complaining about how the number 10 website was run? Were they complaining about their petitioners getting rejected? Were they petitioning about what they were allowing us to do and not? That number 10 site, the one. So is that spike in numbers there, 258, is that complaints about the e-petition service, the first number 10 site? There aren't any earlier on, but towards the end of it, there are a lot of complaints. 2000, there don't seem to be that many complaints, but there they go up. or was it one specific issue? I know there was certain issues like the EU and all types of things like that. It could have been, but that would have surely the EU petitions would have come under the normal petitions. Could it have been something to do with the e-petition service and how it was being run? I don't know. That's the question I'd like to ask, but we'd have to see the petitions and see what they're asking about. And then we've got from 2010 to when we've got this highlighted colour here, 2015, right? Now, here, this is when they get the first petitions, e-petitions website for government and parliament, so it's not number 10 anymore, but they're still bypassing the chamber. The normal petitions, the paper petitions, continue to be the same through here, except for that strange spike. Now, this is when they did not have a petitions committee. They didn't have a petitions committee, like actually MPs on a committee. They scrapped it in 1973 or 1972 or 1973, right, around that time. And all petitions to Parliament were referred to ministers to make observations, right? So everything on here, nothing on this page ever, up till the end of this highlighted period that I've got now, had a petitions committee. There wasn't even a petitions committee at all. Now, this highlighted area is the first proper normal e-petitions website. And the normal paper petitions continue to be around the same, except for that strange spike at the end of the number 10 Downing Street period, right, for the e-petitions at 10 Downing Street. But we don't actually have, they haven't put in the sessional returns, they haven't published the e-petitions from the online service and how many there were. And they have not published the number 10 Downing Street ones either. They haven't published the number 10 Downing Street petition figures, which I really want to see how many there were. I know where they're listed on the website, but you can't read what they're about, but you can see who submitted them. There are lists of that, like you can see the link, and the wording of the link says who it's from, and that there's a little bit of text, but you can't open them. In fact, it's not a link, it's like they're just lines of data, right? Data line for each one, actually. So really need to read those. But we know that forfeiture was a really important, popular topic, and they don't let us do the forfeiture ones now. They've said we can't do them, or it's not something that Parliament can deal with. But of course it is, they've got a forfeiture committee, and it was the most popular subject through the number 10 period, which was from here to here. So they were doing forfeiture petitions then, and then they stopped letting us do them now, right? Right, so now 2015, the next thing that we need to talk about, I hope you can follow this so you're not confused. I probably could say it a lot clearer, but I'm just going, this is from as much as I can remember to mention and throw in there, like maybe I can make a better video later. 2015. Now, this is when we have the petitions committee established. They actually establish a petitions committee, a proper one, right? 2015. They haven't had one at this point, remember, since 1973, 74. All petitions going through Parliament, go through the chamber, through your MP, and get referred to a minister up until now. Now they can be referred to a committee again, like they used to be in the, through the early 1990s, right? Now, this is when they've only started. I've got the letter E in front of those numbers with the letter E, right there for e-petitions. They've only started putting the e-petitions return numbers from 2015 when there was a petitioners committee. Where are they from 2010 to 2015? And where are they from 2006 to 2010? We don't know. Now, I started doing petitioning in 2013 there. So this current new team only existed something from 2010. I don't know if some of them came from the number 10 Downing Street team or not. But I only started learning about all this in 2013, and then my actual main petition to was it in 2019? Sorry, hold on. Sorry, I've actually got confused and I've made a mistake. I didn't do my petition in 2019. It didn't close early in 2019 at all. I'm completely wrong. I did it in 2015. It was in the 2015 government, 2014 to 15, which that did close early. 104 and 62. So the figures, they haven't actually, they didn't put the e-petitions figures at all in the returns. They weren't in there. But apparently, by the rules, it said that all completed petitions will go in the journal or manual. So they've got to be listed somewhere. So we need to ask George where they are. Sorry, that 2019 threw me off because I know that the Parliament closed early for a general election, and I thought that's why the numbers were so low. But 2019... I think that something to do with was that to do with COVID or something? I thought the numbers had gone up. So I made a mistake there, but I've realised it, and I've said that I made a mistake about 2009. So yeah, mine was 2015. Sorry. So that was there. What was the other thing I need to say? Oh yeah, these e-numbers. So these e-petitions here on the hold on, let me show you something. Let me just show you this. This is actually the petitions that were submitted during the 2019 to 2024. And it says that there were 13,758 petitions. 13,758. So I hope you're following me, not falling asleep now. So that's why I've put 13,000. 13,750. Yeah. 13,753. That's there, right? 13,753. Now, that means that if you add these up here, it should add up to they should add up to 13,753, but they don't. They add up to 13,687. They only add up to 13,687. So where is the other 100 or so? Now, the other 100 or so can't be the 2017 to 2019 ones, because then you'd have to add another 7,996, right? And that would go over. And there's clearly a sessional period, that 2017 to 2019. So why you include any of those in 2019 to 2024, I don't know. So they don't add up. It's erroneous that the numbers don't add up to what it says on the e-petitions website. So where's the error? Is there a glitch on the website? Is it wrong? Or did the person who do this annual return report get their figures wrong? And didn't they put the figures down in here correctly? Why aren't they showing us, and why can't we see the e-petitions from 2010 to 2015? Why can't we see the 2006 to 2010 for those e-petition sites? And they're not even really true accurate figures, these, because they're rejecting a hell of a lot of petitions on very tenuous and false premises. And really the figures should be a lot more like they were in the 1800s, right? Like that, officially, the official figures, but they're not that. And even the ones that they reject, which aren't included in here, but they still show you them, don't even make up for all the ones that are submitted. It's a shame people don't actually do paper petitions and learn how to do it and know about it. But like I said, no one seems to be doing private bills. So I thought that a lot of companies would still be doing private bills, like railway companies and water companies, and using the privileges of Parliament. But, they're loaded, they've got money. In this day and age, if you've got money, you don't need anything, do you? Because, you're rich, you can buy whatever you want, you haven't got any problems in life, you don't need to use any privileges. If you disagree with the council, you just send the council are getting paid off, The council are getting all these deals and handshakes, and you're getting a nice Greg's pasty shop built, and a new bus station, and all the stuff that the council wants. They do handshakes with now with the companies. They don't argue and oppose them and are in conflict about where the railways are going with the government, or what 5G masts are going to be put up. The councils all seem to support all these companies, be completely bought out by them. So that 2019 figure, I got that mixed up with 2015. So I'm glad I corrected that. But there's a small number there. So when you add these up, they just don't add up. They don't add up correctly at all. So we need to know why they don't add up properly. And also, right, so 2010, the start of the service, we don't know, we can't see the numbers of e-petitions at all. If e-petitions have increased gradually the whole time. 2017 to 2019. Now, there were 7,996 e-petitions from 2017 to 2019, right? That's a lot. Because when I was doing mine, in 2015, we ain't got the figures from before that for anyone else. There was 4,602, then 6,348, then 7,996. So it's going up thousands at a time. But then this 2019 one, where I don't know if there's a general election called or whatever happened, I forgot. There's only 189 e-petitions because it must stop and start. And then when it starts again, we've gone back down to 5,574, and then it goes down again to 2,892, and then down again, it's 3,000, and then down to 1,571. Now, the pandemic happened after 2019, so people are going to have a lot more time to go on the computer and do petitions, and they're going to have a lot more time to complain to the government about things. And then this is when all Extinction Rebellion and all kinds of other groups are kicking off and protesting and doing petitions. So you'd think that the numbers would be increasing a lot higher than 7,996. But they're not. They're going down. That tells me that there's a lot more petitions being rejected. A hell of a lot more petitions being rejected and not actually getting officially acknowledged on here, because we know for an absolute certain now the whole country is going absolutely bananas berserk against Keir Starmer and the government. But on paper, for e-petitions, it looks like there's no problem, nothing's wrong. It looks like, it's a quiet day, right? In figures. But the truth is that I can guarantee you now that in 2026, there's probably never been as many petitions. In fact, the e-petitions are probably likely as much or higher than the 1800s when it was like huge numbers. So it's falsely represented here, and they're being falsely rejected. And, standing orders of Parliament set the rules, and I've checked up on this in the 1994 report. In order to change the procedure in Parliament, right, for where the petitions go to be accepted, they admitted that we'd have to change the standing orders to do it. They haven't changed the standing orders, but yet they've conjured up this policy. And they've conjured up a policy since 2015, and I don't know what policy they had from 2010 to 2015, but I'm not being allowed to do any petitions now. I've submitted over 200 or 300, and I study the subject. It's like I'm a scholar in petitions. It's my subject, and if you take into account, right, most people who do e-petitions aren't very educated or interested in it. They're just annoyed, and they just like fill it in and send it, right? Do it or sign other people's e-petitions. For paper petitions, even going back to 1997 and all the way through the 90s, even way back to the 1930s, Ethel Margaret Self, right? There's not a lot of people in England who are doing this thing. They're like 50s, 100 people, 250 at the most per session. So the numbers of people who write, then I don't know how many people they've got signed, right? I don't know how many people they've got signed to those petitions. They might just have themselves, or they might have 100 people. They could have thousands of people. They might have a million. Some of them might have a million signatures signed. I don't know, right? And I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if these numbers, this is what I need to ask that George, do these numbers include like Change.org petitions, which they did online and collected the signatures and the email addresses, and they printed them all out, and they got 250,000 signatures, and they printed them all out, and they put them in a big cardboard box, and the petition is therefore in paper, and they deliver it to number 10 Downing Street and give it to the Prime Minister. Is that on here? Is that in these figures here, right? Or are they considered e-petitions? Right? Are they in the e-petitions figures with the Parliament e-petitions? Because really it was an e-petition, but they just printed it out on paper, right? Or are they saying, oh, well, it was an e-petition, but it got converted to paper? Because in the HC 235, it says they're interchangeable, right? The terms. Paper petitions are meant to be the same as digital ones for the same purpose, right? So, like... So there were quite a few questions here. They're culling them. When you go into the history books, right? When people look back in history, what happened, from that pandemic thing in the 2019, right? What happened to England in 2019, historians, right? And what's happening now in 2026 with this absolutely bananas about Keir Starmer, right? If you look at this now, it looks like, oh, look, e-petitions were established, 10 Downing Street, we can't see them yet, but when they eventually got around to getting a committee, they started putting them in the sessional returns, and it started being quite popular, they nearly had 5,000, and then they got up to about 7,000, but then it suddenly started going down again. But people interested in e-petitions, no, actually, it's increased, the numbers have gone up, right? And they're not just petitions about law and legislation. They're actually grievances, personal grievances. Now, was that what these in brackets were meant to be? They're the personal grievances, and we don't see the personal grievances in e-petitions because they don't want to show us them or tell you how many there were. And in fact, I don't know what happened in this 2019 with that number 3, when I said I thought it was when I did my my petition, but it wasn't. I did it earlier, actually. But I said that. I told you that I got the date wrong. It was 2015. What happened here when they stopped putting the bracket, the total and the numbers under the standing order? I don't know. Something happened there. So those are my questions and queries. Very interesting to know what the 258 was in 2010. My question is, was it concerning the actual number 10 Downing Street website, or not? I don't know. Were there complaints about the e-petition service through paper petitions? I don't know. Are these numbers in brackets, which make up the total, are they personal grievances? And why did they stop doing that in 2019? And where are the e-petitions service figures from 2010 to 2015? Where are the ones from 2006 to 2010? Why aren't the 1997 or 1996 figures clickable in that document? The 1997 to 1998 sessional returns, why can't you click on D? It says it D, public petitions. You can't click on it, you can't open it. Why don't they want us to see them? Because looking at these trends in figures, there shouldn't be any reason really why they don't want us to see them. So there are a lot of concerns. Now this George, he's very polite, and he's been very cooperative speaking to him. Right, I can't complain about that George. Although I tried to ring back after I'd put these figures together, and no one's answering. Right, but he was all right earlier on. He says that he doesn't have anything to do with e-petitions or that team, and he doesn't know them. Right, none of the MP constituency office seem to know anything about it. It's governed by the Leader of the House and the Chair of the Petitions Committee, and they only had the Petitions Committee since 2015. I don't think e-petitions is legal, because a lot of the process is governed by statute law. The soliciting of the signatures is governed by statute law. That's why the rules for petitioning and standing orders are only... The rules in standing orders for public petitions begin when you hand it in, right? But we know that you're still privileged, and that the preliminary proceedings are part of the process, because you're the preliminary proceedings for private bills, right? But as for being legislated, it was legislated by the Tumultuous Petitioning Act. It was legislated by Observation of Due Process of Law. It's legislated by the 1688 Bill of Rights, the Seditious Meeting Act. It was all legislated, right? What those processes weren't under... standing orders of Parliament, or governed by Parliament, and they didn't take over the process because they didn't even get the petition until they'd finished and handed it in. And when they repealed the Tumultuous Petitioning Act, there was no limit on what signatures you can get. You were back to pre-1661 before Charles II, before he put restrictions on everyone, right? Pre-Civil War, right? Under the Observation of Due Process of Law, 1368, where the commonalty put forth their petitions, right? According to the ancient law. So it was regulated and governed by statute law. In fact, there were laws in there that you can't arrest people when you're on civil process for petitioning Parliament. You're not allowed to arrest someone without a original record and writ, etc. It's not under Parliament's jurisdiction until it gets handed in. So I don't know how the e-petition service have taken it under their jurisdiction, and they're rejecting all these petitions and stopping us from sharing the signatures. It goes against standing orders. Even in that 1944 committee report, they said that if you want to change the procedure, you've got to change the standing orders. They never did. And as for e-petitions policy, I said this to George. I goes, look, George, he doesn't deal with e-petitions, but I told him anyway. I said, George, right, standing orders of Parliament tell you, in the modern ones, what policies you can make and what you can't. It gives you the power to make policies in there, right? It's not giving the e-petitions team any power to make policy. In fact, only one committee has power to have policy in there, and not the petitions committee. And it gives power to make policy for local. So there is basically no power to make policy at all with the e-petitions team. Only government departments and one or two other committees can have policy, because if you think about it, receiving a petition by your MP and them judicially endorsing it and it being presented to the House on a table in the chamber, which is what standing orders do, it's law. It's like a court. It's a special judicial function of the House of Commons. It's not. It can't be in any other governmental department, and the committee doesn't have the power to do it until they get given it by there. And they didn't have a petitions committee to receive it. And the petitions committee traditionally are the pre-1973 committees were meant to be given the petitions to better research and understand them. That's what the powers of summons were for. To understand what the petition is, they're meant to go out of the way to understand it, not like say, oh, we don't understand what you're asking, and then just throw it away or give you it back, or refuse to contact you or anyone else, they've got if they can't understand English, they need to summon a school teacher or a literary agent to read it to them and explain it to them. They're meant to be the clever ones, right? And our petitions were never asked to be changed, altered, or modified because they're a statement. That's why the MP signs it. It's like an affidavit, right? It's a witness statement. You can't change a witness statement or a prayer. And if they didn't like what was on them, sometimes they just, like, when they published it, they did abbreviate them or put them in shorthand or just summarise them so they could, like, a petition was received asking for this or that. They summarised them, right? A lot of the older petitions got destroyed in the fire of Parliament, but not the ones after it. I don't think they were keeping them, but they didn't keep them in Parliament anyway. They kept them in a tower. So I don't think a lot of them did get burned. But anyway, that's to be looked into. A lot of them did survive from the House of Lords and so forth, which I've got a lot of those. Jason Piercy transcribed them. So it's a judicial function of the House of Commons. So when they when they made the first number 10 Downing Street website, they were doing it. Tony Blair didn't do it properly or lawfully. He wanted to modernise, but he didn't want it to have any proper judicial effect or process. And he was sending the petitions off to departments without any proper judicial process, which is basically stealing them of their powers. And a lot of these petitions are opposing those departments, but those departments have got to decide on them. It's the House of Commons which makes an order or decision and then gives it to a department to execute that decision or order, right? After they made a decision on it. And then in 2010, I don't think it was as bad in 2010. I started getting interested in 2013. It had only been going for about 3 years after, from the new website. And then when I did my petition, the 2019 one, I don't think it was from then on things started to they started rejecting more and more. But forfeiture was one of the main subjects on the number 10 Downing Street website, 2006 to 2010. Now they don't let you do it, or they say that you can't do it. Well, you must have been able to do it because they used to do it and they've got a forfeiture committee, right? So there's a lot of questionable things going on, and these figures do not represent anything. This is false representation. These figures are false representation. This is all misconduct in government. What the whole e-petition service is misconduct in government itself, right? Because it violates standing orders. What said that you couldn't have any other process unless you change standing orders. They've got a policy when it says you can't make a policy for what they've made it for in standing orders as well anyway. They're rejecting everything. And they're making the figures look like people aren't angry and annoyed with what the government is doing and up to. Increasingly angry, particularly with Starmer now. And, a lot of those petitions, they're not even acknowledging them. And the normal paper petitions has been really steady the whole way through. And I don't know why they haven't given us the figures and pretty much whatever else I've said. We need to, can the Ombudsman, Parliamentary and Health Service Ombudsman, act on that team? If George doesn't know who that team is or where they're working from, they're like some kind of elite unit. They're almost like some kind of like the equivalent of a police SWAT unit or a special forces unit. No one knows where they are, who they are, or how to get to them. We've tried to do freedom of information for their names. We can't get them. They're like Parliament's secret special operations unit, like SAS, to take out petitioners, take them down, right? When there should be 60,000 petitions a session like there was in the 1800s. People are really angry about things, right? And they're lying to do it. They're lying about what we can and can't do. And that policy can't possibly exist. It's in violation of all of Parliament. But that's the least of our... Well, and this is how we're going to get things dealt with. Few people very few people of 60 million are doing paper petitions, because people probably think that it's a waste of time writing it out, but it's meant to go in. It does go in the journal, and you can even get an official reply or response. But you're using when you're doing the proper petitioning, you're actually using the power of petitioning, the privileges, and for when you do private bills as well, which clearly I thought loads of private businesses would be doing private bills, but it doesn't look like they are, even less than who are doing public petitions. They must not need to. So this leaves us with this strange situation with all the protesters, because there's actually millions of protesters now. There are all different kinds of groups doing protests outside hotels and etc. All different, okay, I say etc. I mean to say, Big Brother Watch, the Good Law Project, Resistance GB, Extinction Rebellion, Insulate Britain, Just Stop Oil, Defend Our Juries, Britain First. There are loads. There's never. I don't think that there's ever been as many protest groups actually in action at the same time. People, the amount of protesting that's going on now, I think, must exceed the 1800s. It must do, and everyone's more connected than they were then. But we can't get them this information, that what the rights are, and using them properly, right? Because they're all kind of engaging in it like Swampy and the Newbury bypass, where government are trying to make out, well, it's not a petition to Parliament or business to Parliament or cause and matter to Parliament. It's just general protesting. It's like static electricity. It's not connected to anything. But it actually is, because they're trying to raise awareness of an issue and trying to get other people to act and do something. Just unfortunately, very few of them seem to be doing the petitions. Maybe in with these numbers here, maybe in this like 2001 to 2002, this is an example now, right? Maybe in those 109 petitions, maybe 3 or 4 of those 109 petitions, were from Newbury Bypass with, people like Swampy signed, or one change.org or something like that, and one of the people started it and they signed it, but the rest of them didn't do their own petitions because they all signed one, right? Maybe that's why these figures are quite low, that type of thing. Or maybe they just think, like, we're banging pots and pans, trying to get Parliament to act, complaining to our MPs, trying to get more people just ringing into Parliament or writing to them or turning out visibly. Hopefully Parliament sees them. That's the problematic area we're on at the moment when it comes to claiming and using the rights and privileges, when the staff of Parliament are trying to make out that, you're not using the rights, when, I've done everything properly. I've submitted petitions, I've written petitions out, because then it's all on record. But the courts haven't even been acknowledging it, I'm not surprised the courts haven't been really acknowledging it when the protesters aren't interested. They just want to protest, and people who do an e-petition just want to fill an e-petition form and then sign it, and then that's it done with, and don't want anything else to do with it. But there are loads and loads of groups going out there, out and about in the country, on site, doing things, and they know they've got rights, and they know they've got protections, but they don't necessarily exactly know what they are. But you'd have thought they'd be a little bit more interested in them, because they're into doing the protesting and they're into using it. So you'd have kind of thought they might be a little bit more interested in the rights around it, and some of all this stuff to do with the Parliament, law and history. And look, like, people should be aware now, and they should know that Parliament are trying to make it look like people aren't absolutely going berserk in massive numbers. When you look at these figures, have they been doing that all through history? Historian students, are taught petitioning by like Dr. Brody Waddle and Jason Piercy and Karen Bowie, and they learn about the history of England by what petitions people are doing, what were their daily lives like from the petitions. And now we can't learn any of that. Well, we might be able to from these few paper ones, but very small numbers, whereas in the 1800s there were thousands of them, right? You could probably learn a lot about it from the censored e-petitions that they don't want to show us even on the rejected list. But we can learn what I think that we're going to learn in history from this is, like, they have the Glorious Revolution or the Civil War, you learn things. We're learning how corrupt governments can quickly become when they get used to block ban buttons on social media, and they like that, and Parliament wants to be a little bit like Mark Zuckerberg on a platform, and they just think that they've got a Facebook page, and they're running e-petitions like it's a Facebook page, but it's not. It isn't a Facebook page. It's like a very serious judicial process where people have got rights set institute law, and they're even saying that petitions aren't even in. The errors that Parliament are making, the mistakes that Parliament have been making, actually, those are on the record, because like in the 1944 committee report, you've got MPs owning up they've been doing things wrong, right? There's quite a lot of things that they'd say, oh, you've been doing this and that wrong, Parliament, even admitting that people didn't really know the process or what. I've even just read in that 1944 report, it does say in there that some MPs didn't know about petitioning. Some of the MPs didn't really know what petitioning was or the procedure. That's now. They've admitted that. That's something they've admitted in that 1944 report. So, they're getting elected into Parliament, and all they want to do is, they don't say, oh, we don't know about, private members' bills. They don't go, oh, we don't really know much about private members' bills. That's why we've been spending 60 hours on it, right? And enjoying the lottery. I mean, you could say they don't know about private bills and all. I'm going on to private bill subject now, but no wonder Alex Dillystone and the other 7 parliamentary agents who probably can just about, navigate a pilot, know how to write legislation out and do the process of Parliament for that, but they clearly don't know about the history of it and the surrounding processes like what we're talking about using, because hardly anyone's doing private bills anyway. If I've looked at 2 or 3 of these sessions and there's only like one private bill, maybe I looked at the wrong one, but I've got a feeling that it's just going to be like that through all of them, like, the odd few. I was expecting it to be like, 100 or 200 or 50 or 20, but it was just like one, and I looked at another session and there was a one there as well. So there aren't many. No wonder they don't, even the private bills don't know about, they don't need to uphold the privileges of Parliament. They're not getting invaded. People are intervening in it. You don't need to call Knights of the Empire into Parliament to have them under contempt. And actually, when you look at the history of it, the Parliamentary Papers Act was meant to, not require all that. It was to make it simple so people could get things sorted out in the courts by a proper process, right? And give it to them, not just for, Parliament to order more books from Hansard, more standing orders from Hansard, etc. So there's quite a lot on there, I don't really know if that George knows more than he's letting on, but I haven't had this conversation with him because I was talking about other stuff, but, I wouldn't have been able to go through all this with him, but I could ask him, simple questions for George. Why isn't the 1997-98 figures there? Why are they not got a clickable link on? At the bottom, why does the 13,753 not add up properly? Why is it 13,687? Please, why are the number 10 Downing Street e-petitions figures not in there? And please, why are the 2010 to 2019 figures for e-petitions not in there until this 2015 committee? And I wanted to ask him, are these brackets numbers that I've put, which make up the total, are they the odd petitions of miscellaneous subjects and grievance petitions? Why is there 258 at the end of 2010? I'd be interested to know what subjects those petitions are about. And why are they making it look like petitioning is going downhill and it's not popular? And the whole country, why are there not 60,000 petitions on there, all going bonkers about Keir Starmer and private grievances, Starmer, this is why the people don't like the CPS and why don't they trust them. This is the type of thing that the CPS do when they go into court and present a case, right? Make it look like this or that. This is what Parliament are doing, making it look like the whole country is not going berserk and bonkers in figures at all, right? I think we need criminal action against this Parliament, misconduct in public office and perjury. possibly even treason, because Tony Blair, there's loads of things Tony Blair's done wrong. Loads of people have got grievances and complaints against Tony Blair. The e-petitions is completely and totally set up. The idea of how it's done is totally wrong, because it's trying to make a judicial process. It's trying to take it all out of Parliament and not have it connected to any judicial processes. So something needs to be done, because e-petitions cannot be lawful. Standing orders hasn't been changed in 1944. The 1944 report said that it had needed to be changed for them to change the procedure, which they haven't done. And then the standing orders say that it says who can have powers to make policy, and not for petitions, and only for government departments. So it's all completely and totally wrong. And the fact that they're making it look like less people are complaining is absolutely scandalous.